welcome to Pecan Corner. I'm Tina, and today I'm going to make a couple of different macaroni dishes that only have 2 or 3 ingredients, and a different kind of bread that you might not have had before, but we had a lot when I was growing up. These things that I'm going to make now, I've always liked to be able to make some things just straight out of the pantry. You know, there's times when you can't get to the store or you need something in a hurry, and then so I'm going to make a couple of different things. Someone recently asked, someone that watches the channel asked also if I'd make my mac and cheese and show how I do that. So I'm going to make that tonight too. Today we do ours differently than I still make mine the same way, but most mac and cheese is kind of different from the traditional way that my family made it and then I made it. I'm going to start with macaroni and tomatoes, which just on its own is a very tasty meal, but a lot of the way we always had it in my family is we called it weenies, macaronis, and tomatoes, and that's what it was. Is sliced up wieners and hot dogs and tomato and macaroni, and that was a supper. That's what we had for supper a lot of times. In case you don't have weenies in the house, in fact, I hear we're going to have a shortage of weenies for quite a while because of things. So, summer sausage. Did you get some summer sausage in that food box for Christmas, the one with the cheeses that we talked about in my last video? If you did, this is a good way to use it. It's a really good way to, and this is also a good way to be able to prep some foods in your house. Summer sausage will keep forever. I don't know, it probably has an expiration date on it because nowadays even salt has an expiration. But the fact is if you store it in a cool, dark place, it'll keep for years if you don't open it up. So you can pick up a couple of these when they're on sale after Christmas, and put them in your food storage, and you can find ways to spread them, and it'll go a long way, and you can assure that you've got some meat in the house that's delicious. This also makes good sandwiches and lots of things. So let me bring my, then I'm going to make fried cornbread, which is just, if you eat Italian, you might know it as polenta. I was so excited when Paul and I first got married. I came home one day and I said, look, I found polenta at the grocery store, and he laughed and he said, Tina, read the ingredients. And I read the ingredients and it said cornmeal, water. So, but in the South, we called it fried cornbread. Some people might call it corn pone too, but we called it fried cornbread. So let me bring the camera around here and we'll get to work. All right, I have my water boiling for my mac and cheese, and get some things together here. I'm just making a small batch right now because I'm the only one that'll eat it. Paul is, or I'll share it, but Paul is, he can't have the pasta because of his diabetes. So we're going to make that and let that be cooking while we're talking here. I'm going to set my timer for it because I want it to cook for about 8 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. I don't want this al dente. I want it to be nice and soft. Another dish, and this is one that my grandmother made, is called, it's just macaroni cooked in milk. And I don't have any fresh milk. When I've been to the store, if they had it, I felt like I needed to leave it for families with young children because there is shortage. So I'm going to use canned milk. You could also use powdered milk. The British still use powdered milk reconstituted as their cream in their tea. And yes, their afternoon tea. And at high-end restaurants, that's what they bring you, is reconstituted powdered milk. My mother-in-law, my children's father's mother, she used evaporated milk in her coffee. That's what she liked for her coffee cream. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to pour about, milk reconstitutes at about 1 to 1, a cup full of water to a cup full of milk. All right, now then, got that done. Oops, that's boiling good. Okay, now while those are cooking, I'm going to start my macaroni and tomatoes here. I've already got some grease in my pan because I made Paul some hamburgers for supper and I fried them. Now then, normally we do not save beef fat unless you're going to clean it and put it in the freezer and do a lot of things like that with it. Normally beef fat's not something we save. We just save pork fat. But in a situation like we're in now, where the things are in short supply, where you can't go to the store, where it's not wise to get out more than necessary, you don't want to run out of your fats. So my if you cook something where you have beef fat, I suggest pouring it up into a jar, putting it in the refrigerator. After it's cooled off, remove the fat, take the fat off the top and discard any juices that are down below. The fat will rise up. And then you can use that within a few days for anything that you're going to fry like this, especially if you're doing more beef. So let me get the cutting board here. Turned that on a little too soon. And let's get going on our beef here. There we go. I'm just making a small amount of this because, again, it's just for me. So I'll make a small batch. And I'm not going to eat all of this food tonight either. I'll have to save it and eat it over the next several days. You'd have to take the paper off that it's wrapped in. That's not edible. It's not like a casing like some sausages have. This is, and I'm just going to cut it into cubes. Big Lots is a good place to find summer sausage at a good price. When they have their 20% off store-wide sale is a really good time to buy it. All right, now I'm going to brown this. Now then, I like onions in mine, but my grandmother didn't put onions in hers very often, so if you don't have any onions, it's okay. You don't have to have it. Or if your family doesn't like onions. So it tastes really good without them. I had been being stingy with my onions because I forgot to buy fresh foods before all this started, so I don't have as many in the cabinet as I would like. But I've got my green onion sprouts growing here, and look, it's asparagus season, and our asparagus are old enough now that they're putting out some nice big fat stalks. These are the ones I picked today. So tomorrow, we had some roasted asparagus tonight, and I used the ones that I had picked in previous days. Our favorite new way to eat asparagus is roasted. Just put some olive oil on it and roast it under the broiler. It's delicious. Or on the grill. If you're doing grilling, it's wonderful. Okay. Now then. Now then, I'm turning this down. My water is heated there. This is my water and milk. Now then, this is hot, but it's not boiling. So I'm going to put my macaroni in it. And you don't want too much in this, because what we're going to do, we're not going to ever pour anything off of it. We're going to cook it down until all this is absorbed by the macaroni, all that milk. If I had fresh milk, I'd just be using about 3/4 whole milk and about 1/4 of water. You need a little water because your water's going to boil away. So there's a 1/2 cup of macaroni there, and this is another good thing to prep. These are, I want to say these were 1/4 or 50 cents a package at Aldi. And you just can't get any better than that. And there's enough for, you might need 2 packages for a family serving. However, it's still a good buy to have some simple things to put in your pantry to have on hand. They're easy to store. You know, you can get all kinds. There were those shells. There's fideos if you do Mexican food. And I think there's another, I think I have a previous video, one of my very early ones, about making fideos. If not, look them up, because that's another thing that's just 2 ingredients. It's this very thin pasta, angel hair top pasta, and tomato sauce and water, and that's it. You just brown them first. All right, now then, I've got that turned down low, and I'm just gonna let it cook really low. I'm gonna add some salt. All right. Okay, now then, I'm browning my meat here and my onions. But just a little brown, it just adds a little flavor. You don't have to cook it, because the summer sausage is already cooked. Now then, I'm going to add my macaroni. We always use elbows for this. Since it's just for me, I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of elbows. And I'm using my home canned tomatoes, but you can use fresh tomatoes. If you have fresh ones, just chop up a couple of fresh tomatoes and put in there. You can use tomato sauce if you don't have tomatoes. You could even use ketchup if you don't have any tomatoes at all. Put 1/2 cup of ketchup in there. It'll be just fine. It'll be tasty. And I don't want the whole can. You just want a small amount of tomatoes in this. You don't want a whole ton of it. So that would have been a small can, about, you know, one of those, 12-ounce cans of tomatoes and the juice of chopped tomatoes or crushed tomatoes or whole tomatoes, like I said, or just a couple of fresh tomatoes will be fine. All right, now then, there's already some liquid from the tomatoes, but I'm going to add some more, and I'm going to keep my eye on it. There we go. All right. I'm also going to add some salt to this. And keep stirring this macaroni and milk at a low rate. Okay. Okay, my macaroni's done for my mac and cheese. Let me get me a little dish out that I'm going to put it in. Let's see, have I got something glass I can put it in so y'all can see? Hold on, let me see what I've got. I can put that in this small container. Okay, now then, I'm gonna use a pie plate this time. I usually use a square dish, but I usually make a lot more of it, so I use a lot larger dish. So you can drain your spaghetti. macaroni. Now then, and I like to add some butter to it. I'm going to add some butter to this too, to my macaroni and milk. There we go. And I'm just going to add a little dab to this to keep it from sticking together. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take half of it and put in my pan here. Then, my granddad, when he made mac and cheese, he just put a layer of macaroni in a baking pan and then topped it with a lot of shredded cheddar cheese. I always had to stretch it a little bit with my 3 boys, so I got to where I would dot cream cheese around on it, and that works really well. They like it a lot. You can also dot it with sour cream if you have sour cream and don't have cream cheese. I like cream cheese because it'll stay in the freezer and it'll keep pretty well in the freezer. Oops, there's my knife. It gets a little crumbly in the freezer, so you wouldn't want to freeze it if you were going to use it to make a spread out of. But for cooking purposes, it's just fine. If you're doing keto, you know that melting it makes a delicious cream gravy substitute, or white sauce, if that's what you call it. And I'm just dotting a little bit of it around. That's about how much I'd put on top of a deeper batch of it. Now then, little pepper, just a little dab, just a sprinkle of salt, and cheese. Now then, add the rest of the macaroni to it. Very, very simple. You know, we're all used to having it made with a sauce in today's world, but this is the old-fashioned way that my family did it. We never had it with a sauce. And then when my kids were small, of course, we bought the packaged, but I never had that packaged Kraft mac and cheese when we were growing up. That wasn't something I had. I only put, here we go. Now, normally I would put a few more dots. Well, I guess I can do it this time too. A few more dots of cream cheese over the top of it, but it just doesn't take much. Just a little dab is all you really need. You just kind of want it dotted around there. And then be generous with the shredded cheese. And I use cheddar for this, or Colby. Sharp is delicious. I just happen to have mild right now, but whatever you use is fine. I've got my oven preheating at 350, and I'm going to put this in, and I'm just going to let it sit in there until the cheese melts and it's all bubbly. All right, there we go. Now notice my shells and milk are still cooking over here at the side. We're just going to let them cook for quite a while here. I've got my temperature down very low, and my macaroni and tomatoes is also still cooking very nicely here at the side. It's simmering, you can hear it. So I'm going to let it keep cooking for a while. All right, I'm going to let those cook, and then I'll be back. While these other dishes are cooking, I'm going to make fried cornbread. I've got water boiling here, and I'm going to just use I'm going to put some, I'm going to use bacon fat to fry this in. Move my boiling water there. You can use shortening, you can use lard, you can even use olive oil. It's just fine. We need quite a bit of it in the bottom of our skillet there. Now then, I'm going to take my cornmeal, just plain cornmeal. And for this batch, I'm going to use half a cup of cornmeal. And I'm going to use about half a teaspoon of salt. You want some salt in it, otherwise it'll taste bland. Now I'm going to pour boiling water over it. Let's see, let's measure a little bit. I don't normally, I usually just do it by eye. Okay, there's a 1/4 cup. Let's see, that may be too much. No, 1/4 cup is what we're going to do here. And we're going to stir it up. You have to use boiling water because you need it for it to kind of cook the cornmeal when it goes in. And that's what holds the cornmeal together. There we go. See how it's sticking together? Can you see a little bit? Let me get over here closer where you can kind of see. See how it kind of naturally just holds together? All right, now my grease is melted. So I'm going to pat this out with my hands. Some people add an egg to theirs. My mother never did. Turn my, ooh, there was a little water in that, I guess. I'm going to turn my heat down. And I'm going to make, this patty is about the size of an egg to start out with, I guess. Yeah, about the size of an egg. And then just pat it down. And the way my mother did it, you could see the imprints of her hands in it. I've always thought maybe that's one of the reasons I like the Mexican pottery that I collect. I started collecting it before anybody else did, and one of the things I loved about it is you can see the handprints of the potters in it and in the glaze. It's because it's, you know, it was just rustic ware. It was just made for home use and then later for the tourists, but it was made by people who they didn't go to college and learn how to pot. They didn't have an apprenticeship, you know, with some famous potter. Well, if they did, it was not an artist type. It was a all right. Now then, I'm just going to let those fry there. They're going to fry on low heat until they start turning brown on that side, and then we'll turn them over. My macaroni and milk is still cooking here. This one takes a little while because you need to cook down that liquid, but you need to do it really slowly. It's best when you're doing a bigger batch if you can keep it from boiling at all and just have it at a simmer. It's kind of hard to do with this little bitty batch that I'm making right now. But if you can keep it at just a simmer and never really let it boil, if you're using regular milk, it's really good. But you do stir it often, and just wait. You know, take your time with it. My macaroni and weenies and tomatoes, or macaroni and summer sausage and tomatoes, is just about done. I've turned the fire off on it, and I'll take it up in a little bit. And my oh yeah, and my mac and cheese is coming along nicely too. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, it's time to turn the, let me get it where you can see it. Let me see, there we go. There we go. Time to turn the cornbread. There we go, real gently. There we go. See how it's nice and brown and kind of crispy on that other side? Those crispy edges are the very best part. Now we'll let it cook some more. I'm dishing things up, and I thought you might want to see the macaroni being dished up. See how it stretches? That's good stretchy cheese. But you can also see how the cream cheese kind of melted inside, and you can see how it got just slightly crispy on the edges. That's a lot of people's favorite part, is that crispy top. So it just depends on, you know, everybody's going to have their little favorite bit of this. That's one of the fun things about this kind of mac and cheese. Now my cornbread is ready to take up, and if you have butter, it is delicious with butter on it. Where is my knife? Oh dear, I don't have a knife handy. Hold on, let me get it. There we go. We'll make do with a spatula here so I don't have to run off and there we go. Let's put a little butter on it. It doesn't need it if you're, you know, but if you happen to have it on hand, it just kicks it up a notch. All right, I'll be back in a second when I get everything. And here we go. We've got everything set up here. I've added a little bit of pepper on top of them. I want to show you real quick. You know, I collect just odds and ends of old silver-plated spoons, and I found these several years ago. One of them is engraved Thrifty, and the other one is engraved Happiness. How cute is that? I found them independent of each other too. It just almost like an omen. So over here, weenies, macaronis, and tomatoes, or just macaroni and tomatoes. If that's all that you have on hand, it's delicious, filling. Your family will love it, and you can make it straight out of your pantry with your summer sausage. Store your summer sausage in the refrigerator after you open it, and you can keep it in the refrigerator or freezer if you want to extend the storage life on it. but it keep, like I said, it'll keep at least a year in the pantry. I think it'll keep for a couple, 2 or 3 years in the pantry. And so it's a good thing to have. Mac and cheese the old-fashioned way. My family's old-fashioned mac and cheese with the stretchy cheese. It's fantastic, and it's very, very much a mac and cheese for adults. If you don't have cheese, or if you have excess milk you need to use up, this is a delicious macaroni and milk. Look how creamy it came out, and that's just milk and macaroni. And see how big the shells got? They were, let me just show you real quick. Look at the difference in the size. They swell up huge. If you use elbows, they'll look like those great big elbows by the time it's finished cooking. It's creamy. Your kids should really enjoy this, especially if they're accustomed to the mac and cheese that we have today, which is made with a sauce on it. So that's a delicious dish. And fried cornbread, the way my mama made it, and still makes it. And she's not on the internet, so I can't. But when you open it up inside, see, it's delicious. Wonderful, crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. So there are 3 very few ingredient meals, and I hope that you will enjoy them. If you're, and I hope that they'll save you some money, make it easier for you to have some variety in your diet. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for stopping by my kitchen. Look forward to seeing you again soon. We really appreciate you all. Be safe, take care of yourselves, and find some fun things to do while you've got some time to do it.